Hey there, welcome back to another video. In today's content, we are going to talk about a lady who faked it till she made it. We are going to talk about Elizabeth Holmes, the youngest fake billionaire. Now let's get into it. Born February 3rd, 1984, in 2003, she founded and was the chief executive producer, Theranos, a health technology company that soared in valuation after the company claimed to revolutionize blood testing by developing methods that could use surprisingly small amounts of blood, such as from a finger prick. By 2015, Forbes named Holmes the youngest and wealthiest self-made female billionaire in America on the basis of a $9 billion valuation of her company at the age of just 31 years old. But on November 18, 2022, Elizabeth Anne Holmes was sentenced to serve 11 and a quarter years or 135 months in prison on charges of defrauding investors. She was sent to prison. So in this episode, we are going to look at what happened to turn the youngest, most brilliant female billionaire into a convicted fraudster. To answer this question, we will need to take you back to 38 years ago. Elizabeth Holmes was born February 3rd, 1984 in Washington, D.C. Her father, Christian Ramnos Holmes IV, was a vice president of Iran, an energy company that later went bankrupt after an accounting fraud scandal. Her mother, Noelle Ann, worked as a congressional committee staffer. Christian later held executive positions in government agencies such as USAID, the EPA, and USTDA. Christian is a part of Danish ancestry. Her paternal great-great-grandfather was Charles Louis Frischmann, a Hungarian immigrant who founded the Frischmann Yeast Company. The Holmes family was very proud of his yeast company empire's history. According to a family friend, Joseph Fritz, he said, and I quote, "I think the parents very much yearned for the days of yore when the family was one of the richest in America, and I think Elizabeth channeled that." And at a young age, Holmes attended St. John's School in Houston. During high school, she was interested in computer programming and says she started her first business selling C++ compilers to Chinese universities. Her parents had arranged Mandarin Chinese home tutoring, and partway through high school, Holmes began attending Stanford University's summer Mandarin program. In 2002, Holmes attended Stanford, where she studied chemical engineering and worked as a student researcher and laboratory assistant in the School of Engineering. After the end of her freshman year, Holmes worked in a laboratory at the Genron Institute of Singapore and tested for several acute respiratory syndrome coronavirus SARS-CoV-1 through the collection of blood samples with syringes. She filed her first patent application on a wearable drug delivery patch in 2003. In March 2004, she dropped out of Stanford School of Engineering and used her tuition money as seed funding for a consumer healthcare technology company. In 2003, Holmes founded the company Real Time Cures in Palo Alto, California, to democratize healthcare. Holmes described her fear of needles as a motivation and sought to perform blood tests using only small amounts of blood. When Holmes pitched the idea to reap vast amounts of data from a few droplets of blood derived from the tip of a finger to her medical professor, Phyllis Gardner at Stanford, Gardner responded, "I don't think this idea is going to work. explaining it was impossible to do what Holmes was claiming could be done. And I watched a documentary by 60 Minutes Australia, and I saw Holmes' teacher or professor, Phyllis Gardner, and she really explains it vividly. So if you really like to have more insight on it, I think 60 Minutes Australia has done a couple of documentaries and videos on Elizabeth Holmes. So go watch that and you will gain more insight, and just listening, watching the people talk, it will help you more. And several other medical experts, medical professionals, told Holmes the same thing. However, Holmes did not relent. She succeeded in getting her advisor and dean at the School of Engineering, Channing Robertson, to back her idea. In 2003, Holmes renamed the company Theranos, a portmanteau of therapy and diagnosis. Robertson became the company's first board member and introduced Holmes to venture capitalists. Holmes was an admirer of Apple founder Steve Jobs and deliberately copied his style, frequently dressing in black turtleneck sweaters as Steve Jobs did. I saw this lady and she was always in black turtlenecks. Man, that's scary. Holmes says her mother dressed her in black turtlenecks when she was young, but her employees says she suggested copying Steve's famous Issey Miyake turtleneck look in 2007, as well as her voice. Nobody trusted. During most of her public appearances, she spoke in a deep baritone voice, although a former Theranos colleague later claimed he heard her speak in a voice stereotypical of a woman her age to welcome him when he was hired. Gardner of Stanford also denies that Holmes has a naturally deep voice. Her family, however, has maintained that her deep voice is authentic. Okay, family. Okay, if you say so. By 2004, Holmes had raised $6 million to fund the firm. By the end of 2010, Theranos had more than $92 million in venture capital. In July 2011, Holmes was introduced to former Secretary of State George Shultz. After a 2-hour meeting, he joined the Theranos board of directors. Holmes was recognized for forming the most illustrious board in US corporate history over the next 3 decades. And trust me, that board was really illustrious, made up of old, white, rich men. No pun intended though. Holmes operated Theranos in a tooth mode without press release or a company website until September 2013, when the company announced a partnership with Walgreens to launch an in-store blood sample collection centers. She was interviewed by Medscape by its editor-in-chief, Eric Topol, who praised her for her phenomenal rebooting of laboratory medicine. Media attention increased in 2014. Style magazine and Inc. Forbes recognized Holmes as the world's youngest self-made female billionaire and ranked her 110th on the Forbes 400 in 2014. Theranos was valued at $9 billion and had raised more than $400 million in venture capital. By the end of 2014, her name appeared in 18 US patents and 66 foreign patents. During 2015, Holmes established agreements with Cleveland Clinic, Capital Blue Cross, and American Health Caritas to use Theranos technology. But then, things were about to take a different turn. John Kerry of the Wall Street Journal initiated a secret, months-long investigation of Theranos after he received a tip from a medical expert who thought that Theranos' Edison blood testing device seemed suspicious. And if you go watch the documentary on 60 Minutes Australia, You will see the guy there, the whistleblower, John Carreyrou. Thank you, John, for spilling the beans. Carreyrou spoke to ex-employee whistleblowers and obtained company documents. When Holmes learned of the investigation, she initiated a campaign through her lawyer, Davis Boyes, to stop Carreyrou from publishing, while included legal and financial threats against both the journal and the whistleblowers. In October 2015, despite Boyes' legal threats and long-term tactics, the journal published Carreyrou's bombshell article detailing how the Edison device gave inaccurate results and revealing that the company had been using commercially available machines manufactured by other companies for most of its testing. Carreyrou continued to report problems with the company and Holmes' conduct in a series of articles, and in 2018 published a book titled Bad Blood: Secrets and Lies in the Silicon Startup, detailing his investigation on Theranos. Holmes denied all the claims, calling the journal as a tabloid and promising the company will publish data on the accuracy of its tests. She appeared on CNBC's Mad Money the same evening the article was published. Jim Cramer said the article was pretty brutal, to which Holmes responded, "This is what happens when you work to change things. First they think you were crazy, then they fight you, and then all of a sudden you change the world," in Holmes' voice. In January 2016, the Center for Medical and Medicite, sorry guys, my language, my pronunciation is not the best, but you have to understand, I'm trying. In January 2016, the Center for Medicare and Medicite Services, CMS, sent a warning letter to Theranos after an inspection of its Newark, California laboratories uncovered irregularities with staff, proficiency, procedures, and equipment. CMS regulators proposed a 2-year ban on Holmes from owning or operating a certified clinical laboratory after the company had not fixed problems in its California lab in March 2016. On the Today Show, Holmes said she was devastated we did not catch and fix these issues faster, and said the lab would be rebuilt with help from a new scientific and medical advisory board. I hope it's not the bench of old, white, rich men you're talking about, Holmes. I don't know. In 2016, CMS banned Holmes from owning, operating, and directing a blood testing service for a period of 2 years. Theranos appealed that decision to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Appeals Board. Shortly afterwards, Walgreens ended its relationship with Theranos and closed its in-store blood collection centers. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration, FDA, also ordered the company to cease use of its capillary tube container device, one of its core inventions. In 2017, the state of Arizona filed lawsuits against Theranos, alleging that the company had sold 1.5 million blood tests to Arizonians while concealing or misrepresenting important facts about those tests. In April 2017, the company settled the lawsuit by agreeing to refund the cost of the tests to consumers and to pay $225,000 in civil fines and attorney fees for a total of $4.65 million. Other reported ongoing actions include an unspecified investigation by the U.S. Federal Bureau of Investigation (FBI) and 2 class action fraud lawsuits. Holmes denied any wrongdoings. On May 16, 2017, approximately 99% of Theranos shareholders reached an agreement with the company to dismiss all current and potential litigations in exchange for shares of preferred stock. Holmes released a portion of her equity to offset any dilution of stock value to non-participating shareholders. In 2018, the SEC charged Holmes and Theranos former president Ramesh Balwani with fraud by taking more than $700 million from investors while advertising a false product. On March 14, 2018, Holmes settled the SEC lawsuit. The charges of fraud included the company's false claim that its technology was being used by the U.S. Department of Defense in combat situations. But my question is, why was the U.S. Department of Defense waiting only until this company was debunked to come out and cry that no, our defense, we don't use Theranos or its testing methods during combat situations? Why did they not say that earlier? Why? The company also lied when it claimed to have 100 million revenue stream in 2014. That year, the company only made 100,000. The returns of Holmes settlements included surrendering voting control of Theranos, returning 18.9 million shares to the company, a ban on holding an officer or director position in a public company for 10 years, and a $500,000 fine. At its height in 2015, Theranos had more than 800 employees. It dismissed 340 in October 2016 and an additional 155 in January 2017. In April 2018, Theranos filed a one-act notice with the state of California announcing its plans to permanently lay off 105 employees, leaving it with fewer than 24 employees. Most of the remaining employees were laid off in August 2018. On September 5th, 2018, the company announced that it had begun the process of formally dissolving, with its remaining cash and assets to be distributed to its creditors. Whatever you're spilling, spill it fast, because this, you need something to spill. On June 15, 2018, following an investigation by the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Northern District of California in San Francisco that lasted more than 2 years, a federal grand jury indicted Holmes and former Theranos Chief Operating Officer and President Ramesh Balwani on 9 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. Both pleaded not guilty. Prosecutors alleged that Holmes and Balwani engaged in 2 criminal schemes, one to defraud investors and the other to defraud doctors and patients. After the indictment was issued, Holmes stepped down as CEO of Theranos but remained chair of the board. Holmes was tried in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of California, with U.S. District Judge Edward Davila presiding. Holmes retained defense lawyers from Williams and Connolly, a permanent American law firm that specializes in white-collar crime defense. The trial began on August 31, 2021, after being delayed for over a year due to COVID-19 pandemic and Holmes' pregnancies. Every time she had a court date or anything, she went and got herself knocked up. She and her partner really planned it well. The case was prosecuted by the U.S. State's Attorney for the Northern District of California. Holmes testified in self-defense for 7 days, claiming amongst other things that she was misled by her staff about the technology and her ex-romantic partner as well as lover, Sonny Balwani, who was also facing trial. held influence over her during the romantic relationship they had, and which was still ongoing when the alleged criminal acts happened. Okay, Holmes. Okay, blame the brown guy. Okay, Holmes, if you say so. This case's evidence outlined Holmes' role in fake demonstration, falsified validation reports, misleading claims about contracts, and overstated financials at Theranos. On January 3rd, 2022, Holmes was found guilty on 4 counts of defrauding investors, 3 counts of wire fraud, and 1 of the conspiracy to commit fraud. She was found not guilty on 4 counts of defrauding patients, 3 counts of wire fraud, and 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. The jury returned a no verdict on 3 counts of wire fraud against investors. The judge declared a mistrial on 3 counts, and the government sued after agreed to dismiss them. Holmes waited on sentencing while remaining at liberty on $500,000 bail, secured with property. She faced a maximum of 20 years in prison and a fine of $250,000 plus restitution for each count of wire fraud and for each conspiracy count. Seriously? A fine of $250,000? Okay, Dre. Okay, US. On November 18, 2022, U.S. District Judge Edward Davila sentenced Holmes to 11.25 years or 135 months in prison and ordered her to surrender by April 27, 2023. Okay, white privilege. The sentence included a fine of $400 and $1,000 for each count of fraud and a 3-year supervised release after the prison term. Whatever. She could get about a 15% reduction on prison time with good behavior, which would put her sentence at 9.5 years with possibility for parole. Davila recommended she be incarcerated at federal prison camp Bryan in Texas, a minimum security facility with limited or no perimeter fencing.
No one wants to get kicked out because compared to other places in the prison system, this place is heaven. If you have to go, it's a good place to go,
says a criminal defense lawyer. The US is shitty, I swear. Holmes was romantically involved with technology entrepreneur Ramesh Soni Bharwani, a Pakistani-born Hindu who immigrated to India and then to the US. She met him in 2002 during a trip in Beijing as part of Stanford University Mandarin program. Holmes was 18 at the time and had just graduated from high school. Bharwani was 19 years older than she was and was married to another woman at that time. Their romantic relationship was kept secret for much of their time running the company. Bharwani left Theranos in 2016 in the wake of the investigations. The circumstances of his departure are unclear. Holmes has stated that she fired him, but Bharwani says that he left off his own accord. On November 29, 2021, Holmes testified that she had been raped while she was a student at Stanford and that she sought solace from Bharwani in the aftermath of the incident. She also said Bharwani was very controlling during their romantic relationship, which lasted more than a decade, and at times he berated and sexually abused her. Okay, Holmes. In her testimony, she stated she also wanted to kill the person she was and create a new Elizabeth. However, she also testified that Bharwani had not forced her to make the false statements to investors, business partners, journalists, and company directors that had been described in the case. In court filings, Bawani has categorically denied abuse allegations, calling them false and inflammatory. In early 2019, Holmes became engaged to Willie Billy Evans, a 27-year-old heir to Evans Hotels. Is anybody seeing what I'm seeing? Is anybody seeing it? Okay, if you're not seeing it, it's all right. A family-owned group of hotels in the San Diego area. Do you see it now, or should I go on? Okay, let me go on. In mid-2019, Holmes and Evans reportedly married in a private ceremony. Holmes and Evans have not directly confirmed whether the two are legally married, and several sources continue to refer to him as her partner rather than her husband. Holmes gave birth to a son in July 2021. In October 2022, weeks before her sentencing hearing, it was reported that she was pregnant again. The case of Holmes is said to have created a stigma for other women entrepreneurs, particularly in the science and healthcare industries, who are often compared to her. Writing in the New York Times, technology journalist Erin Griffith commented that Holmes continues to loom large across the startup world because of the audacity of her story, which has permeated popular culture, with women entrepreneurs reporting that frequent comparisons are pernicious. But I have to ask a question. All the male entrepreneurs who have defrauded the world, are men now stigmatized because of them? Please, someone should give me a break. It is simple. My point of view is this. Elizabeth Holmes is a very damn good fraudster. She worked and fine-tuned her fraud. She planned it, worked on it, involved herself in it, and anybody she could drag into it, she dragged into it, including, that's why her board of chair people were made up of rich white old men who were higher up in the US government, which made it difficult before anybody could penetrate the company to investigate it or to look into what they are doing, because before somebody could step one foot there, she will call one of those rich white old men and they will tell them, stay away from my investment. That is exactly what happened. She made sure of that. She dragged Sonny Bawani into it. Sonny Bawani is another fraudster as well. How were you married to a woman and you were dating an 18-year-old? I will leave you for another episode, because this episode I cannot discuss him. And let nobody get fooled by Holmes' story of, I was raped when I was in Stanford. Do you know how many girls were raped while they were in school, primary school, secondary school, university? That means, do you want to tell me that all of them should become fraudsters like you? All of them should start dating old men who are married 18, 19 years older than them? Please, Elizabeth, take several seats, sit down. And the one that hurts me most is the slap on the wrist she was given in the name of a sentence. She was sent to a heaven called prison, and she has a possibility for parole. And what? The fines are just ridiculous. This is one of the reasons I say the US economy, the US is just a failing train. It is crashing and burning every second, and every time I want to turn my eye and say, no, it cannot get that bad, it gets worse. Fraud, first of all, runs in Elizabeth Holmes' DNA. Yes, it does. Do you remember my introduction? Her father owned a company which was later sued for several fraud issues. Now, do you think that Elizabeth Holmes is still as innocent as she would think? This husband, partner, or whoever he is, who is heir to a group of hotels, I am praying for you, because you are her next scam, and she is working on it for years. She was not having kids with you because she wants to have kids with her partner. She was having kids with you because she wanted sympathy. She wanted mother sympathy during her trial and sentencing. And after she has had that, she will walk her way into scamming you and your family. Watch out. Watch what I tell you guys. Watch it. This is Pills throwing my spills out, my guts out. Whatever spills you have next, let me know. It was an episode of the youngest fake billionaire, female of course, and we're very, 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 very confused. White privilege really exists. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one.